Hello, everyone, and welcome in. Let's talk music, specifically this new Sublime album, Until the Sun Explodes. Sublime is arguably one of the most popular third wave ska bands, if not that, then the most popular ska band, and if not that, then one of the most popular bands to come out of the 90s. The band was unfortunately cut very short after just releasing a few albums due to the untimely passing due to a drug overdose of frontman Bradley Nowell. After his death, the self titled Sublime album was released, and that hails some of the group's largest and most popular songs. Sublime has gone on to influence an entire generation of people and has become closer to a brand than just a band. I know everybody has seen the Sublime t shirts. You likely have seen this beautiful sun over here, but chances are you're clicking on this video because you know of Sublime. In the 2010s, Sublime started to pick up a little bit again when they decided to make music under the name of Sublime with Rome, featuring Rome Ramirez as a temporary frontman. I never got too into Sublime with Rome. I feel like their music featured a more poppy sound to what Sublime has offered in the past. As for Sublime with Rome, I believe they were making music up until 2024, and now we are in 2026, 30 years after the release of the Sublime self-titled album. And in steps Jakob Nowell, the son of Bradley Nowell, to kind of carry the torch forth and continue the legacy that his father left behind. With Jakob Nowell as frontman and returning members Eric Wilson and Bud Gaw, they have put out this album, Until the Sun Explodes. And if you look at the album cover, it almost looks like it's shedding the 40 ounce to freedom, Sublime Sun. And I can't help but feel there might be some symbolism going on here that Sublime will never die. Sublime kind of lives on. And I don't necessarily know if we needed a new album to prove that. This isn't really a new and improved Sublime outfit. If anything, it sounds like a not as good version of the 90s Sublime. I actually consider Sublime with Rome to be more of a step in a different direction than this. I feel like we're kind of touching on nostalgia more than becoming something new as to with what this album cover is trying to say. In 2025, I noticed that there was a new single put out by Sublime, and I was, of course, intrigued, so I clicked on it as, frontman Bradley Nowell was dead for 29 years. I'm doubting he was just resurrected. I genuinely thought that this song was using AI to accomplish the vocals because Jacob's voice throughout this song and his performance sounds spot on with his father's. I Google searched if it was AI, and that yielded the result that Jakob was taking over as the new frontman, and they were putting out some work to kind of honor his father's legacy. This excited me a lot as someone who was a huge Sublime fan. I didn't get the opportunity to grow up listening to Sublime, but I got super big into them in 2018, 2019 during my transition to adulthood. Sublime is arguably one of my top 25 favorite bands, especially the original lineup, so I was very excited with where this album was going to go. I'm taking this off because it's summer and I'm hot. Let's go ahead and get into the track list of Until the Sun Explodes, starting with Ensenada, the first single that I was just talking about. I personally really liked this song the minute it dropped. I've probably already listened to it tens of times. As I mentioned, Jakob has a very similar voice to his father. There's a lot to love about this song that will give you the nostalgia of classic Sublime, such as some of the raunchy lyrics where Jakob is saying that he doesn't want to be someone's man no more and wants to make love to a derogatory term for a woman. And Jakob Nowell's guitar playing skills here are really forefront and center, and you can hear the influence of his father's music throughout the way he's playing. And the vocal performance on this song sees Jakob Nowell going pretty risky and trying things that his father used to do, and which I feel like a lot of the songs following this, he does not put in that same effort. But in this one, it is on full display. In terms of classic Sublime, the song really is reminding me of 40 Ounce to Freedom, complete with an awesome distorted guitar solo toward the latter half of the song. And this one might be my favorite song on the album because after this, we start to see the wheels loosen up. Not yet, though, because the next song, Wizard, coming in at 2 minutes of total runtime, is perfectly utilizing those 2 minutes. We get these hard drum and guitar hits at the top of each measure, leaving us excited for what's to come, to this bass line build up by Eric Wilson, into some lyrics that also are reminiscent of classic Sublime, and it's a little tale of Jacob going to meet a wizard who sells him some substances. One of my favorite moments is there's some quiet guitar licks during the first verse, and they're kind of playing an echo game with Jacob's vocals. So, like, for example, he'll be like, I met a wizard at the bar, and then there'll be like this little guitar lick that you can hear in your right ear if you're listening to this album with headphones on. They just fit the song perfectly, and overall, this was a really fun song. The next song on the album, Can't Miss You, kind of is, in my opinion, the first misstep of the album, which I hate to say that because at first the song was reminding me of Let's Go Get Stoned off of 40 Ounces to Freedom, which is one of my favorite Sublime songs ever. And we get such a nice start to this song with some really good guitar technique and guitar playing going on, just kind of coagulating in this very nice way with the bass line. They're having these nice hits together. But then we get to the distorted guitar part. Don't get me wrong, I love when Sublime would breach into punk, but Jakob Nowell, his vocals are just not fitting as well over that distorted guitar. And we're going to see that happen a few more times on this album, unfortunately. Up next, we have Backwards featuring Zach Carper from Fiddlar. And you can hear his feature very plain as day. He features some guest vocals, which I'm not entirely sure I liked his vocals in this song, but everything else going on with this song, I did enjoy quite a bit. Specifically, the slow to fast tempo relation that we get throughout the song, where we get this really fast ska beat, and then we get into the punk rock sound with the distorted guitar, in which I do find Jacob's vocals, the minimal that there are at this point, matching quite well. And then back to like a slower, more reggae, more refined approach. It's a very fun switch up and leaves you excited for what's going to come next. Now, my first few listens of this song, I was thrown off by the effects on the lead guitar during these more distorted guitar moments because it sounded kind of like it wasn't fitting. But I listened to the song about 3 or 4 more times, and now I just love that lead guitar that sticks out like a sore thumb. You get like this kind of surf rock influence and sort of phased out lead guitar over this punk rock distorted guitar. And it's actually reminding me a lot of Paddle Out by Sublime, which is a song that I always felt the lead guitar just did not fit whatsoever. Now, the main vocal refrain throughout this song is always going backwards, and I feel like that is very symbolic of where this album has went, considering they went backwards with their sounds to accomplish that 90s Sublime sound, compared to their ventures with Rome, where they seem to be touching more on the mainstream sounds at the time. After this, we get Maybe Partying Will Help Part 1, which is an interlude, which serves as a little transition going into the next song. It has such a nice instrumental in the background that's getting cut off by these little audio samples of people talking about Sublime and whatnot. The instrumental in the background of this interlude actually reminded me a lot of the chord progression used in the Ballad of Johnny Butt. It sounds almost like it's the band practicing in a rehearsal space, like getting acquainted with one another. Anyways, the interlude leads us into the next song, favorite song, and this song is not my favorite song on the album by any means whatsoever. It features Skeggs, who made the song Lakeshore Drive, if you know what I'm saying. And that's a song I've liked by Skeggs for some time now. I've actually listened to that song for the past 3 years, I'd say. Considering the sort of indie chill vibe of Lakeshore Drive, I didn't know how a feature from Skeggs would be with a ska outfit. I thought that there was a possibility that this wouldn't work out, that the ska beat would not fit the music of Skeggs very well. But actually, I was a bigger fan of Skeggs' vocals on this instrumental than I was Jakob Nowell's. Skeggs has this nice rasp to his voice that kind of ties this sad and slow ska beat together. Now, I sound like I'm complimenting this song, but don't get me wrong. As of right now, this was my least favorite song on the album. The one thing I did tend to enjoy about this song, though, was the way that the chords changed leading into the hook from the verse. There were these nice little chord hits from the guitar that I thought would serve as like a perfect transition. Overall, the guitar playing and the timing of those chord changes was really nice, but everything else in this song just failed to spark my interest. Up next, we get to Personal Hell, which is another short song on the album. For the better, because I also lacked interest in this song. The writing in this song is, in my opinion, quite adolescent. There are specific lyrics like, is he finally perfect or perfectly fine? I'm never a big fan of lyrics like that. I tend to find them just so adolescent. It's one of the reasons I don't care too much for Eminem. For example, on one of the songs that I actually really love by Eminem, he kind of ruins it with this verse where he says, "You wanted an intimate date? I want to intimidate." Anyways, back to the song at hand, Personal Hell. I found the instrumental to be okay. It was nothing that stuck out. It seems like they had a bunch of different ideas that they threw together. The song has a primarily punk influence, and it's okay. But then we get to this portion where they go into a slower reggae chop of the song, and it just sort of seems like they had this idea for a song and they practice it with a more punk rock sound and a more reggae sound, but then they didn't know which one to do, so they threw both in. In my opinion, the best part of the song was actually the slow breakdowns where we got the slower punk rock drums with these tom hits in the middle and these low guitar notes just hitting at like the tops of measures. I thought that those parts of the song had a lot of raw energy and I really enjoyed that portion. Luckily, we get FTR next, which is actually one of my personal favorites on the album. There's a lot of sample work throughout this song that gives this nice Sublime nostalgia, something that you would expect to hear from 40 Ounce to Freedom or the self-titled album or even the Robin the Hood album. The most notable moment, in my opinion, is during the hook. There's like this West Coast hip hop synth sound that plays, I believe, in your right ear. This to me sounds like Jakob Nowell heard What I Got and was heavily influenced to make something similar, complete with the acoustic guitar solo. We've also got some like blown out bass, which sounds like it has almost like a synth pedal on the bass guitar. We get some better lyrical content on this song that I'm actually a big fan of. The vocal performances were a bit dry, but I feel like that sort of subdued vocal performance really fit with this instrumental better than it did on some of the previous tracks leading up to this moment. Up next, we have Evil Men, which felt to me a lot like a filler track. Not a bad song, but it wasn't necessarily good. I love the story and the image that is being painted in the lyrics of the song. but I feel they just fall kind of flat, especially because there's this reference to a secret treasure chest throughout the song, and that kind of just it's very symbolic of some adolescent writing. Overall, there's not much variation in this song. It's kind of just one continuous pace to get to the end. We get a nice guitar solo, which adds some variation to the song. But overall, there's not a hook throughout the song, and I feel like that's for the worse. It's kind of making the song suffer a little bit. One of my favorite parts of the song is actually the ending of it, when the instruments, they're done playing, and you can hear, like, in the background what sounds like Jacob saying, "I can do better." Yeah, you definitely could have done better. Up next is Trey's song featuring HR of Bad Brains. This one also seemed like a filler track, but it was better than the previous one. There is some amazing drum playing capability in this song from Budgaw with these nice hi-hat fills. We also get a nice catchy hook on this song, which I love the inflection of the vocals, hitting kind of every 3 beats with this 4/4 instrumental. There was a guitar solo that served to take from point A to point B. I feel like the guitar solo could have been taken out to cut back some of the time that this song is taking up. And just when you thought the song was coming to an end, we get this nice punk rock switch up in the last 30 seconds, which I did find myself as a big fan of. And if the 30-second punk rock twist of the last song excited you, then this next song probably calmed you down. It is Casino Tormina. And essentially, the song is just that Jakob Nowell can't bag a random Costa Rican woman, and now he's never gonna be in love again. The song is entirely acoustic, and the lyrics are stupid. The vocal performance is bad. It has to be a joke, right? Like, this isn't a serious song. Like, I'm not supposed to be feeling, like, bad for Jacob, right? Like, he's just fooling around, right? If that's the case, then, like, I appreciate the irony of the song, but that doesn't make it good. I'm gonna move on from Tormina's Pizza or whatever, because after that we have The Problem With That Is It Makes Me Stoked, which is another interlude. The instrumental in the background sounds amazing. Bud's drumming sounds like it's on another level, but then we have these little vocal skit things happening above it that are just taking out and distracting from this wonderful instrumental. After that is Gang Stalker, which is another one of the singles that was released prior to the entire album. And this one comes in full force with this awesome fast-paced ska beat, with this trippy guitar with a ton of layered effects over it. And it wouldn't be a classic Sublime album without some talk of a drug-induced paranoia. It seems like Jacob is kind of tweaking off of something that he smoked or took or popped or whatever. And I really do enjoy the story that these lyrics are painting. But then, however, we get to another distorted guitar moment where we get more of a radio punk rock sound where Jacob's vocals are just not fitting. They don't have the edge that I think should be over the rough guitar parts, but I can take the few seconds of the hook being this distorted guitar sound that isn't really working on Jacob's voice, because every other point in this song is really good aside from that hook, in my opinion. We even get a nice little, like, horn solo reminiscent of the horn solo in Wrong Way, and it's good. I'm a sucker for a horn solo. After this is Figueroa, which also appears to be somewhat of a filler track. However, I really enjoyed this one. We have these nice drum and bass moments that hit really hard, complete with a few little, like, echoed and reverberated crash samples. The instrumental for this song overall is really good, complete with this synth toward the latter half of the song that just adds a lot of electricity to that beat. The lyrical content for this one also is pretty interesting. Jakob's talking about what seems to be this really interesting woman, and I want to know more about her. I'm intrigued to hear him keep telling this story. Even though it does tend to suffer from its repetitiveness, I still really enjoy it. I enjoyed it more than the song that followed, Froggy, which also sounded a bit like a filler. It was a bit repetitive. It wasn't that fun. It wasn't for me. But aside from that, I'm just going to move past it because I didn't care for it. I can't think of necessarily why I didn't care for it. It was just a little bit boring of a song. Unfortunately, Froggy was better than the song that follows, which is Come Correct. It's a song featuring G Love and Special Sauce, which honestly, they are the ones that carried this song. At first, I was really intrigued by the instrumental. We get kind of this beat that's reminiscent of the pattern of Waiting for My Ruka, complete with these little horn hits at the top of each few measures, which adds a nice variety to the sound, but overall this beat is really repetitive. And Jakob's vocals, I don't know what he was thinking. At first, for like the first 30 seconds of the song, I thought he was like just getting hype, but no, that's genuinely just how he performs his vocals throughout the song. The song ends with Jakob asking, "How was that?" And then there's someone in the background who's like, "It was effing perfect." Don't be a yes man. Don't be a yes man. Never be a yes man. You need to tell this dude that he needs to chill out. The part that actually was good was when we got an actual rap verse from one of the members of G Love and Special Sauce, and they kind of spit. But then it's surrounded by Jakob rapping like this. This is arguably the worst song of the album. Up next, Jakob starts by trying his hand at some more acoustic with What For?, which is another song that felt like they didn't know where to go with it, as it starts acoustic, and I was actually interested in it. But then it goes into a fast-paced reggae beat, and then a slowed down reggae beat, and I was a little bit disappointed in those portions. I was excited with where the acoustic sound was going for this one, and I'm sad that they cut it off so soon. You could hear Jakob was carrying the song with his acoustic guitar playing. Sounded almost like he was getting some flamenco guitar technique going throughout. If not flamenco, then just some very fast-paced strumming onto that acoustic guitar. And then we have 247-369 featuring Pennywise, who I'm going to imagine is the creator of the instrumental track of this song, which I was a big fan of the instrumental. The punk rock sound for this one was really good, really raw, really energetic. But then we get Jakob's vocals over top that energetic instrumental, and they do not fit. Overall, he sounded very shy when he could have been sounding more aggressive, more loud, more angry. The lyrics also could have done well with some more aggression, because we get some lines that just sound kind of like wannabe edgy. Specifically the secret tweaker line. It really just made me check out from everything else that Jakob had to say. And then we get another interlude, which I feel like this one serves as a nice transition between the raw aggression of 247-369 into the final song. And that final song being Until the Sun Explodes, the title track of this album that we just listened to. And this one, guys, this one is beautiful. It's definitely my second favorite on the album. We get this really nice instrumental and this amazing vocal performance and some of the best writing on this album thus far, kind of about how Jakob's life has been affected because of his father. And we see Jakob experimenting with his vocals in a fun way. We have these really high-pitched yells on kind of like the second measure of the verses. And another thing I wanted to bring up is the rhyme scheme of the hook, arguably one of my favorite vocal inflections throughout the album, with the "It only goes until the sun explodes, and I'd only hope that you know I owe you my life." It hits really powerfully. It gets the message across that he's trying to get across. And it makes you feel for him having, lived his entire life without his dad around, but then having his dad be such an important part of his life. It's like his dad is teaching him lessons, yet he was never able to be there. Now, I wasn't around to grow up with Sublime. I wasn't born when they were making music, but Sublime still served as an important part of my transition into adulthood. And I feel like this song, Until the Sun Explodes, almost makes me feel like I'm missing something from my childhood. It's a very beautiful song and just kind of makes you want to appreciate the stuff around you and appreciate what has shaped and affected your life. I think the power of music is so strong and so important when you take it for what it is. Overall, this album closes out with the most beautiful song on the album, and it makes me happy that Jakob decided to do this and kind of honor his father and give the fans of Sublime something else, something new to enjoy. And of course, there's the other track called Thanks Again, where Jakob thanks the people around him. Honestly, when I listen to this song, it just makes me feel super unpopular, so... Now, do I think that there was a market for this album? Not necessarily, but then I'd be lying, because I was stoked for this album to release, and honestly, I was not left super upset. I tend to be skeptical when bands come back with a new frontman. I mean, just look at Alice in Chains. We got some of the best 90s albums there. And then they added a new frontman to the mix. And it's not that the music was bad. It's that they released it under the name Alice in Chains. And all I can think about is the impact that Lane Staley had on the music of Alice in Chains. Overall, I'm not upset with how this turned out. I'm happy that we got some new Sublime music, especially from Jakob, who has a very similar voice to his father. It genuinely feels like getting an actual new Sublime album that's just a little bit worse than the original 40 Ounce to Freedom and the original Sublime self-titled album. Anyways, yeah, that's all I had to say about this. Like and subscribe. Listen to my music. It's linked down below. Maybe you can say it's worse than Sublime's new music. But yeah, bye. Have a nice day.